This is a show that brings to the forefront newsmakers, entertainers, and those making a difference in our lives and in our world. Each week is a new adventure with topics ranging from the most serious and cutting edge to the most lighthearted and entertaining.
This is Taking Care of Business with Richard Solomon.
Greetings, everyone. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business. This week, we're going to be talking nutrition with laurawburak. And she's got an incredible amount of information. We're going to get right to it. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So the challenge of food. You know, we all have to eat. And yet, if we see the more popular diets, I kind of looked at your website, people felt enslaved to sort of like cardboard and unpopular flavored, items. How can we overcome the challenge of not eating junk, being healthy, getting good nutrition, and maintaining our weight? How do we accomplish that?
Well, I get back to basics. When someone comes in my office, I try to have a clean slate with them. So they come in and tell me all the different diets and diet history that they've been suffering from for most of their lives, because many people have been around the diet circuit over and over again, and they find themselves in the same place no matter what they start doing, because when you go on a diet, you have to go off a diet. It is extremely difficult to be on some kind of restrictive diet for the long term. So, the word diet really means what you eat, but we associate it with everything weight loss centered and negative. So
deprivation.
Yeah, deprivation. So, that's really the key word with the main problem that everybody has, and why it's so difficult for someone to stick to a diet is because they never feel fulfilled. They feel deprived all the time. They feel like if they make one mistake, it's all over, and they're instantly frustrated. So I try first to sort of start to change the way they think about food, change that diet mentality into just a way of life. And that takes time, and people want quick and easy and fast. So part of what I teach them is quick and easy, which is how to stock your house and make quick and easy meals, and where to go food shopping, and what brands to buy, and I give them shopping lists, and we go over a food plan so that they know really quick and easy breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack ideas that they can grab and go. Or that, a lot of my meals are less than 10 minutes preparation. Some of them take less than 5 minutes. So people just don't have the time, they don't have the patience, and I am the same way. I'm a mom of 2 little kids. I'm running around like a crazy person. I totally get it, and that's the other part. I understand what everyone's going through because I'm a normal person too, and I've been through it as well.
You feel our pain.
I feel your pain, and deprivation does not work for me, and it will definitely not work for you. So I first just try to change the way they think and teach them that food is actually fuel, and it shouldn't act as a means of happiness or sadness or occupying your time or eating out of boredness or because you're tired or, because you're in a fight with somebody. I mean, we eat for every single emotion other than usually just actually being hungry and fueling ourselves and thinking about food as nourishing our bodies. So, I teach people what food does for you, what food does for your brain and your organs and your skin and every single part of your body. And if you start to think of it a little differently, then you might think twice about what you put in your mouth. And, once I kind of teach them about basic nutrition and getting back to real food and, actually eating carbohydrates but balancing them out and including lean proteins and healthy fats and, setting the record straight with all of this stuff, because people still think they shouldn't be eating whole eggs and they think they shouldn't be eating fats. And, it's actually quite the opposite, because those foods are very satiating, or they provide that feeling of fullness and satisfaction. And if we don't eat foods that give us that feeling, we're just going to keep eating and eating mindlessly, and that leads to the vicious cycle that we're always in. So First is really the teaching aspect of it and making them understand and setting the record straight. And then second is the fact that I am their supporter. I'm their accountability. I'm kind of like their Jerry Maguire of, diet coaches. And again, my diet word means what you eat. It doesn't associate with negative weight loss and all that stuff. I'm kind of like their person, and we're in contact all the time because the real work is done between visits in my office. So that's why people text me, they email me, we keep in touch, I check on them. If they're in a certain situation in life, because those happen all day long, just reaching out to me can make all the difference.
I could see, for example, how you're on a decent path, but then you end up in, say you go to an out-of-town wedding.
Yeah.
So you're in a hotel, and you're going to be eating hotel food. And there'll be the hotel standard breakfast of, all those things that they serve. And then there'll be the cocktail party and then the meal.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you're presented with a lot of food that you wouldn't necessarily eat, but it's kind of like fun to eat and it's social, and, you don't really think about limiting your portions. And all of a sudden, you've derailed yourself from your objectives. And it's easy to see how over the course of like an out-of-town weekend, between, the airports and flying and hotels or whatever, you can come back, when they weigh your luggage and then they weigh you, it's like, hey, you're both heavier.
Right. Well, most of my clients have these events and, dinners and work events and vacations all the time. So that's what I'm talking about, that life will always go on, and there's always holidays and birthdays and things that we need to just deal with. And that's why the accountability and checking in with me and planning the next couple days or the next week is what we need to do together. So in that situation, there's a couple things we would do. We would prepare for the events. So instead of flying on a plane or going to a hotel with absolutely nothing in your purse to eat, we pick a couple snacks that you're going to bring that are satisfying, like a pack of nuts or, something quick and easy and portable that will satisfy you and keep you satisfied, so that you're not just grabbing stuff and that you don't find yourself really hungry, which then, of course, derails everything. So part of it is prepping a little, and it doesn't mean a lot of time. It's just grabbing a couple of things you already have in your house because I already told you to get them, and you like them because everything I tell people to eat tastes really good, and it's real food, and it's nutritious. We just deal with a situation when you're, away or you're at a wedding. You act like it's any other place. If there's something that's worth indulging in, you have a mindful indulgence. You don't just completely, because you're not deprived. You're eating regular food, so that you make the decision that cake looks amazing, and I'm going to have a couple bites and enjoy it, instead of I'm deprived, so I'm going to binge eat everything in sight, which is usually what happens in those situations when you're on a diet. I really rarely find people that are working with me consistently having these problems anymore. And let's say you eat a little too much at a meal, or you have way too much dessert one weekend. It happens to everybody. You cannot, set yourself up for perfection. So I tell people right away, there is no perfection in this. If you can, be consistent with your healthy, clean eating 80% of the time, you allow for that other 20% to be the treats and the extras and all the things that are normal to have in your life. We can't be one extreme or the other. It has to include delicious desserts and, alcohol and all the things in life that make us happy. And if we, are very mindful about it and know that we're doing it, then people surprise themselves and they don't overindulge. They have it and it satisfies them and they're done. And, the thing to think about is that every new meal or new day is a completely new opportunity. So, if you drank too much one night, you don't say, well, screw it, I'm going to just go off the rails tomorrow, my whole diet's ruined. because that's the mentality most of the time. You say, okay, it wasn't great, but, one meal in one day means nothing. I'm going to get right back to it for the next meal so that it's not becoming this vicious cycle over and over again.
I've read somewhere that when you eat, nutritionally dense food, you're less subject to cravings, and when you eat more junk, you just want to eat more junk.
Yeah.
So how does that work, and how do you sort of curtail the thing where you have a little junk, or it doesn't, it's sort of like, well, I'm only having, just a little bit of crack.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's totally true that nutrient-dense quality food is going to satisfy you much more than the sugary junk food that we can keep eating and eating. So there's a big difference. I mean, the things that we tend to overdo are sweets, because we are addicted to sugar 100%. It has the same effect that drugs has on our brain. So once we eat a couple gummy bears, it can turn into 100 gummy bears. And then, the serotonin in your brain is released, and we keep wanting more and more. Plus, it's pure sugar. It's not nourishing our body at all. Our blood sugar goes up. We want to just keep eating more. So, a little bit of that stuff can lead to a lot more of it if you're deprived of quality foods in your diet most of the time. So, when you're actually eating well and you're not ever starving, which is another thing we work on, that you should never be really, really hungry, and you should never feel too full. You should feel satisfied after your meals, and real food will do that. So that's what I was talking about with including the higher fiber carbohydrates, like fruits and whole grains, and things like sweet potatoes and beans and lentils, and then good lean proteins like chicken, turkey, fish, and eggs, and nuts and seeds, and the heart-healthy fats like again, nuts and avocado and fatty fish, and the good oils like olive and coconut oil, avocado oil. All those things will slow down your digestion, slow your blood sugar down, so that you don't have these ups and downs that you will have immediately when you eat junk. So, when you're eating pretty well, having a little bit of junk isn't going to set you off, because you're mostly nourishing yourself properly. And, you might see that when you do overdo it with junk after you've been eating so well, you almost have like a food hangover. You have a sugar hangover, people tell me, because they're just not used to it. And it becomes almost like poisonous to our bodies when we're, nourishing ourselves so well that we are introducing things that we're not used to anymore.
It's funny. I remember somebody telling me they did some kind of cleansing or juice fast or something like that. And then they somehow ate like a big hamburger, and they said, I feel poisoned,
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're saying. So in the time that we have left in this segment, could you walk me through what would be a nutritious day of eating? So when you wake up, what should you kind of think about lunch and dinner? What's a good day as opposed to bagel and coffee,
right.
Pizza.
Well, that's another thing.
And a hot dog.
I don't want people to think of good and bad foods and good and bad days, because that's what we do. We categorize things. It's kind of like the all or nothing effect, the one extreme or the other. You want to think about healthy. I know I keep using that word nourishing, but if you start to think of foods and what they're doing for you instead of against you, you're going to be much better off. So, a healthy day to me would be waking up and immediately making a giant, thermos or whatever kind of thing you have to hold water that is going to hold at least 20 ounces of liquid. Take a big squeeze of lemon and throw it in there and fill it up. And before you eat or drink anything, including your coffee, try to have a half a liter of water. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but it becomes a habit. And the good news is habits can be changed for the better. So one of my habits that I have consistently, no matter what mood I'm in or what day of the week it is starting with a ton of water. I'm home in the morning with my kids. I know I'm going to be home for at least an hour, so I get my water in. And once I've had that, half a liter or so, then I can start having breakfast and my coffee. It just is a great metabolic booster. It gets you ready for the day, and it hydrates you, and we're all chronically dehydrated. So, I really stress that. Water.
What is the? We only have like 2 minutes here, but for this segment. But what is the time lag that you recommend between that half liter of water and the next ingestion of any food or other liquid?
Well, it could be right away. You can drink your water and then just start eating breakfast, which is fine. You don't have to wait a while. It's just a way to get some water in before anything, because mostly people drink coffee first, and that can actually mess with your insulin levels a little bit. So it's something to think about. You want to drink a good amount of water first, and then you can go for the breakfast. And, you want to eat something within an hour of waking up to jumpstart your metabolism. Breakfast really is, in my opinion, the most important meal of the day. It gets you ready. It sets your mindset for, what you're going to be doing in the day, gets your energy levels set, and you really need to eat the majority of your food during the day and the least at night. And we do the complete opposite. So taking you through a day quickly, I think a great thing to start with is maybe a smoothie where you're adding some kind of greens in there, fresh kale or spinach, and just throw a handful in with some frozen berries or some kind of fruit, some kind of milk that, you're able to tolerate, and blend it up. You can put some kind of probiotic powder in there if you have, or some super greens, nothing with any added sugar. Just, they have so many of these great boosters now. And then I have some kind of carb that's crunchy, like a piece of Ezekiel toast or a waffle that's a whole grain waffle. And then I spread a little nut butter on it and maybe another sprinkle of like a hemp seed or a chia seed, because these seeds provide a lot of great fats and proteins and omega-3s, those good heart-healthy fats. So then every 3 hours or so you want to eat something, whether it's a meal or a snack. And, everybody's different. It depends on your day. But, if you're going to the gym, you don't want to eat too much, but then you want to have enough food within a short amount of time after the gym. And a lot of people tend to go to the gym in the morning. So, the next thing would be a snack. And again, you want to have a good combination of carbohydrates and proteins and fats. So, maybe it would be like a pack of portion-controlled nuts with a fruit. So the nuts are your protein, the fruit is your carb.
Let me hold you right there.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Richard Solomon. The website is LAURABURAK nutrition.com. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Anastasia Zotos from Athens, Greece, and we listen to Richard Solomon on our computers, and we love it.
All right, Richard Solomon, welcome you back. My special guest is Laura-Burak, and she is a expert and someone that you need in terms of nutrition, and she's here in Roslyn. So right in there, Antenna Avenue, and not too far from the new to be open My Father's Place. So there you go. All right, so we were talking about constructing a day of healthy lifestyle ingestion of food.
Yeah.
All right, so let's pick it up from where we left off.
Okay. So I was talking about how you need to fuel yourself every 3 hours or so. Kind of think of yourself as a machine almost. You have to keep giving yourself fuel or your energy levels are going to die down, which is when we go for that second or third coffee, But, I like to call that artificial energy. And, of course, I would never tell you not to drink coffee. I need it every day. It's so good. But to keep having it all day long and not eating is kind of common with some people. So, you want food as energy. You want real food that's nourishing. And, lunch should be, something, all meals should really include some kind of vegetable. So, maybe it's a big salad with all kinds of veggies and some kind of protein, like grilled chicken or shrimp or fish. If you're vegetarian, some tofu or edamame, and maybe some beans in there also to give you a little good starch that's high in fiber. And, then you want if it's a salad, you want to have some kind of fat in there. So if it's an avocado, some kind of avocado or a nice real dressing instead of any of that fat-free diet, sugar-free stuff, you want to try to cut that stuff out of your life because it only leads to people overeating and craving things worse later. So my motto is really to stick to the real stuff and use a little bit of the real thing. And then again, the time that hits us the worst usually is at 3, 4 o'clock when, some moms are home with their kids from school and the kids are having a snack, so you start eating your kids' food, or, if the kids eat dinner early, so you start eating their dinner because you're so hungry, or, teenagers getting home from high school and they haven't eaten much during the day, so they're just rummaging through the cabinets, or, a businessman that gets home from work and, they haven't eaten anything since the
10 o'clock,
donuts and coffee at the meeting because they were too busy, and you don't feel hunger as much during the day when you're really busy and running around, which is actually when you need to eat. So all that hunger catches up to us later, which is why that 3, 4 o'clock snack is crucial. And again, you want it to be something that's got some carbs and protein. Maybe it's a fruit with some peanut butter on it, like a banana and peanut butter, or maybe it's like a bunch of veggies while you're making dinner with like some hummus or guacamole, or, rolling up some turkey slices and dipping it in hummus. Again, nuts and seeds are so great and easy, and you can kind of just pick up a handful and have them, whether you're home or in the car.
What are the better nuts?
All nuts are great. There's really not one nut that's so much better than the other. They all have different fat profiles, but, one of the best ones, if I had to answer that, I'd say is walnuts, which is the one we don't like the most.
Yes.
Almonds are great. They're not significantly better than peanuts, but they're great. And, pistachios are great. Really any nut or seed that you like is going to give you a good balance of carbs, proteins, and fats, which is going to slow your blood sugar down. And one of the best things, again, is that they're portable. You don't need to refrigerate them. You can just have a nice little portion-controlled amount, and they're very satisfying. And then, having a nice big snack and kind of almost like killing your appetite a little bit for dinner is what I suggest, because you don't want to go into dinner, especially if you're going to a restaurant and it might be a later time, you don't want to go hungry, because that is when you lose all control. Your blood sugar drops, you get really hungry, you eat the bread basket, it all falls apart because you're so hungry that you can't make any good decisions. Maybe you have a drink, which then sets you off to, eat things you wouldn't normally eat also, and, that kind of free-for-all starts. So you really want to protect yourself from dinner. Dinner should be our smallest meal of the day, and it's always our biggest meal. It's just the way that our society in this country is. But, I try to swap that for people. I try to tell you, if you go to bed a little bit hungry, it's a really good sign. And you're going to sleep better. You're going to wake up feeling lighter. And that means that you ate enough during the day so that you weren't really hungry at night. And if you can start to achieve that, you'll see that your body will start, if you need to lose weight, if that's your goal, it will start to shed weight naturally. So, that's another thing we can talk about if you want is,
oh, absolutely.
People want quick fixes. They want to lose 10 pounds in a week, and they want it now, and they want something that they can do that's going to do that. Well, the truth is there is no quick fix. You have to fix your mind first, and you have to learn, and you have to be patient, and you need support, and you have to ask for support. And that is when you will reach a point where it will become second nature, that this is how you eat now, and this is the way it is. And none of it's perfect, of course, but your weight will naturally shed to where you're healthy and comfortable over time. But we don't give it enough time. We're very impatient, and that's why, one of the main reasons I think people give up so quickly, because they want instant gratification. And I think that goes with a lot of things in our life right now, with the iPhones and, all the technology. We want it now. I want to watch this show when back then we had to wait till it came on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Now you can have everything you want at the push of a button. And I think that's one reason it's making, the obesity rate so much worse as time goes on, is that people want things and they want it now. And if they don't get it now, they give up, and then it gets worse and worse. So, I tell them to kind of let this be their last stop shop. Like, this is it, we're done. All the time that they've wasted with all of these crazy diets and deprivation has put them in a worse off position. So let's just, do this the right way and be patient and deal with the ups and downs so that overall they're going to come out much better, but it just might take more time. And, think about, if a healthy weight loss for most people is 1 to 2 pounds a week, because that's really what it is. And, of course, it's all relative, depends on your weight. But if you're losing too much weight too quickly, that means you're not eating enough, and a lot of it's water weight, and you will gain it back. So, you need to eat enough to lose weight. That's another thing. And, it's very hard to change people's diet mentality that they've had over so many decades. But once they start to change that way they think, it's really amazing what kind of results they can get without the deprivation. It's kind of like things click finally. Like, wow, I can actually eat amazing, delicious, real food, and my weight is coming down without some, pill or potion or whatever else they've tried in their lives.
Obviously, insulin is a big factor, because I've read over and over again that insulin is what makes us heavy. The ups and downs of your insulin resistance is a major factor. Could you talk a little bit about that and help us explore that issue?
Yeah, so, again, the way I teach people to eat is to have a balance of carbs, proteins, and fats, which will create a slower insulin release, and it will keep your body more balanced over the day. And so the main problem, like I talked about before, is that we have a major sugar addiction in general. I think most of us, have struggled with that. So what happens is the more and more processed, junky, sugary foods we eat, it taxes the pancreas so much, which is where insulin is produced, that your body just stops responding to it, which is what insulin resistance is. And this is type 2 diabetes I'm talking about, where your body just stops responding to insulin, so you have to keep giving yourself more and more to actually, have your cells use that energy that you're eating. So insulin helps take the energy from food and put it into your cells for use. But when you become resistant to it, that's why, your body's unable to use it correctly, so your blood sugar stays higher than normal. And, it's a vicious cycle, because the more sugar you eat, the worse it gets. And, then people eventually, if they don't deal with, changing their lives, they become insulin dependent, where, you actually have to give yourself insulin because your body just completely stops making it. So, a lot of people I see are kind of on the border of diabetes, which they call pre-diabetes now, and there's a test that's called hemoglobin A1C. So it's a percentage. They test it when they take your blood, and it gives you an average over the past 2 to 3 months of how your blood sugar has been controlled. So a lot of people I'm seeing are kind of on that border of pre-diabetes, and that's what sometimes drives them into my office initially, because they're really scared that they're going to develop diabetes, or their doctor told them, if it keeps going up to above this percentage, you're going to have a problem. So, by teaching somebody how to actually eat real food, it can actually reverse that, process of developing diabetes. We can bring their blood sugar levels down to steady throughout the day instead of the roller coaster of up and down, which happens when you skip meals and you eat too much, refined carbohydrates, which is sugar, sugary things. Everything has added sugar these days. And, we can really, the great news is we really can begin to reverse it. And then they see that number a couple months later start going down by the way that they're eating from what I'm teaching them of how to nourish their body instead of, hurt it. And it's really amazing to see that's changing your health in your body instead of, always worrying about what do I look like and what's my weight. It's showing us that your body's actually getting healthier, and this is a real number, and this is actually going on, and that's very motivating and awesome. And, of course, when that's happening, your body on the outside is changing too, probably. But, I really think sugar addiction is the main problem in all of our lives and with our health right now.
Well, you see that at kids' parties, when they have the cake and ice cream after they've had the pizza.
Exactly. Kids are little sugar addicts.
And they start running around and getting silly.
Yeah.
And,
look what it does to you. Again, it's like drugs. It makes you act a little crazy. And it's a vicious cycle. You eat some sugar, you want more and more. Nothing will get satisfied because it's not doing anything good for you. So, yes, that's a whole other issue with the kids now. But, food companies are in business to make money and
sell more food.
And show kids, I want to buy that with all the colorful things on the box. And added sugar from in processed food is killing people. Which I also teach people how to read labels and how to, be a little bit of a detective and figure out what's actually in the food I'm eating. And, if it's a fruit or vegetable, you're safe because there's no ingredients in it. It doesn't come in a package. But, if you're trying to figure out what cereal or cracker to buy, look at the package and look at the ingredients. If you can't understand what's in it, or if you see all of these ways that they disguise sugar, whether it's like glucose or brown rice syrup or
corn sugar.
It goes on and on. There's a huge list of what, basically all of them mean sugar, but they like to disguise them and make them seem healthier. And most people really don't know what they're looking for. So they're like, oh, that looks healthy. And they believe what's on the box and they buy it. And it could have a ton of added sugar. So there's natural sugar and there's added sugar. So I really teach people how to figure out, does what they're eating contain natural sugar, like fruit, or is there added sugar in it? And again, if it doesn't come in a bag in a box, there's no added sugar in it. It's a real food. But of course, we're going to have boxes of food and bags of food in our house, in our lives. It's normal. But that's why I find brands that are super clean and use great ingredients and they're quality foods so that, even though they were made in a factory somewhere, whether it's a big or small factory, we know what's in them, and they're good ingredients, and we can understand everything, and there's very to little, or none added sugar.
Now, I noticed on your website, by the way, only a couple minutes here, but we'll keep going.
Okay.
In your website, laurawburak nutrition.com, for those people out there, you have some help, which is if you go to this place, these are the better choices. Can you talk about that for a minute or so?
Yeah, so on my website, which is laurawburaknutrition.com, I have a page that's called Elle's Choice, and it gives you a list of local restaurants. They're all in Nassau County here, and I'm going to keep adding to the list, but basically all the restaurants that we tend to go to, popular places, I list what my choices are so that you can go to my website and look at, let's say Bar Frites, which is in
the Wheatley Plaza.
Wheatley Plaza, yeah, in Greenvale, and see what options on the menu are, better options for your health. And, it's going to keep growing, but it really helps people even when they're out. They go on their phones and they look, and, my clients know about it, so they can look and see what the great choices are, because we should be able to eat out anywhere and pick something better. There's always an option, and you learn how to modify, you learn how to ask for things differently, and any restaurant around here around the New York City area will do anything you want. They're used to it, and I tell people not to be shy and ask, and you're still eating really delicious food. You're just making better choices, and that's what it's really all about, is modifying, not depriving.
All right, so before we finish this segment, what are all your contact information? What are the best ways to get you?
Well, there's always my website, which we mentioned. There's my email, laurawburak@gmail.com. And my Instagram is Get Naked Nutrition. My Facebook business page is Laura Burak Nutrition. And what am I missing? And yeah, if you go to my website, it has all my information. My office is in Roslyn. It's at 15 Bryant Avenue, right near Diane's Bakery, which is ironic, but, that's okay. It's a great location, central to all the towns in the area. So contact me. You can Google me, too, Laura Burak, and you will see me listed everywhere.
And on all of the platforms that we're on, we'll make sure there's a link to your website in our show description.
Okay.
For those out there who are listening, we'll be right back. We're flying through, but we appreciate Laura being here, and we'll be right back for more.
Hey, this is Jeff Mattson, the Dark Star Orchestra, and you're listening to Richard Solomon on WCWP 88.1 FM.
Welcome back. Richard Solomon, Taking Care of Business. Laura Burak, who is a nutrition person from Roslyn. So all the people out there in Manhasset, Glen Cove, Glenhead, who would rather be on radio than television for apparent reasons, you need to see her so you can kind of, bust out into a different media. All right. So one of the things I always like to ask people is, how did you get to where you are? So, obviously, people just don't necessarily think about these as, everybody wants to be sort of an astronaut or
Right.
something like that when they're little. So, and especially, when people are little, they're not really thinking about nutrition so much, because it's just not those things that are necessarily on the radar, So,
Right. Well,
police,
fire. I started from like a pretty young age. I don't know. I just became interested in cooking healthy meals for my family. I became interested in health and fitness and, getting in shape. I think I just wanted to kind of take control of myself first, and then it turned into, wanting to go to school for it. So, people always ask me, like, were you thin your whole life? And, the answer is not really. I mean, I struggle with my weight and my body just like everybody else, which is why I probably got interested in it. So at such an early age, I was like, I'm ready. I want to get in good shape, and I want to eat well, and I want to look good, and, no one's teaching me this, so I've got to figure it out myself. So I started at Penn State. I knew that I wanted to go to a school that had a bachelor's program in nutrition. There's very few programs in the country that have them. So I entered college. I started in food studies and quickly went into nutrition. They were pretty similar. And, I graduated with a bachelor's in nutrition, which is pretty rare because there's not many programs that have it. A lot of people have to go back to school after they graduate college and do a lot of undergrad classes to get to where I was already. And then you apply for a dietetic internship your senior year of college, which is basically almost like a medical school matching program where you interview and you rank your programs that you want to go to. They rank you, and then you have a matching day where online they tell you where you matched. And I matched to NYU, so right after college I moved to New York City, which I never left because I'm still basically here. And I went to New York University. I did my dietetic internship and my master's degree program there. And then I started working full-time. I worked for many different practices and hospitals. I worked for Beth Israel for many years. I ended up in the ICUs doing tube feeding recommendations and, really critical care stuff. So I've kind of seen it all in a clinical setting, which is really important, I think, for a dietitian to have. Get a really well-rounded background. I worked for Joy Bauer Nutrition in private practice and 2 other practices, and then I worked for a hospital for special surgery, and I did a lot of writing and teaching at NYU. I was an adjunct professor and wrote a lot of food writing, and then when I moved out to the suburbs, I opened my own practice. Again, it's laurawburak Nutrition, and I just want to kind of stress that I'm a registered dietitian. I'm licensed to practice nutrition. I have, a degree. I passed an exam. I've done hundreds of hours that require you to then take the exam. So, if you're out there and you're listening and you want the help of a registered dietitian or nutritionist, you want to find someone who's licensed. You want someone who is an RD or an RDN. That means that they've had the background, the scientific background to be practicing. Because really anybody can call themselves a nutritionist or a health coach, and it doesn't mean they have any education. So just look out for that because, you want the right person helping you that knows all the science behind what they're telling you. And that's kind of everything in a quick nutshell.
So, because we're kind of in the lightning round part of the interview.
Yeah.
You have on your website, from time to time we see food challenges. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the different, things that you do that's associated with a food challenge?
Yes. So once a month, I do something called a clean eating challenge. It's all virtual, so anybody out there can do it. And basically, it's 5 days, Monday to Friday. I send you a food plan, a shopping list, and directions so that you know how to start. And you basically have access to me for 5 days virtually. I do a private Facebook group where I put everybody on it, and everyone's posting all their meals and snacks and ideas and inspirational, things that they've thought up or questions or anything they have. And basically, we eat as a group for a week online, and people get amazing recipe ideas. They get quick, easy meal ideas. They see people transforming in a very short amount of time. And it's just like a really good jump start or kick start to your healthy eating. So it's kind of what I do in my office, but it's different because anyone from anywhere in the world can do it, and it shows people how I teach nutrition and how they can start. And that's kind of it. And every time we do it, it's so amazing, and the groups just keep getting better and better. And I've been doing it now for about 2 years, and it just never fails to amaze me how much people can change from a short time. In terms of just getting some ideas of how to start changing their lives, whether it's I want to have less sugar this week and I want to continue that, because the main point of it really is to continue eating this way. It's not just 5 days and you're done. It's just giving you an idea of how to get started and planting seeds in your head of what you need to work on.
So I see from your website you have a lot of different services. There are things involving metabolic testing, mm-hmm. pediatric and adolescent nutrition, food allergies, that's a big one, mm-hmm. Pre-diabetes, diabetes, and blood sugar management, which you kind of talked about a little bit, mm-hmm. hypertension, which we did not talk about, cholesterol and triglyceride management, which we did not talk about but probably should. Very important, GI disorders, celiac, Crohn's, colitis, IBS, big stuff. Thyroid disorders, that's also really big stuff. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, osteoporosis. Let's kind of try to go through some of that stuff. So in kind of a lightning round thing, let's talk a little bit about hypertension, because a lot of people have hypertension. A lot of people are on medication for that. Right.
Well, hypertension just means high blood pressure. Everybody's an individual. So when they come into my office, it's starting from scratch. It's figuring out this person's life and what we're going to do with their history and their lifestyle and how we're going to modify it for the better. So if we're talking about hypertension, if someone comes to me and their blood pressure has been high and they're on blood pressure medications, I look into their diet and what they're eating and what their lifestyle's like. Are they smoking? Are they sleeping enough? Do they have a history in their family? I mean, there's so much that I do that looks at the entire picture. And that's kind of I feel like a great way to end this, because I know we're getting to the end.
No, we have 9 minutes.
Okay.
We're good. So we're going to go through everything.
Yeah.
But
so,
fast.
it's really so individual and customized and depends on the person. So, I take so much different information from all parts of their life on the first visit so that we can come up with a plan. And, a lot of people think of hypertension as just like eating too much salt, but it can be a lot more complicated than that. One of the ways we help that with diet is cutting back on processed food. It's not usually the salt shaker that's the problem. It's all the processed, bagged, packaged, canned, frozen, whatever it is, kind of food that, they're just using so much added salt in. So, again, the way that I teach people to eat is going to be naturally lower in sodium because it's real food and, we're not adding tons of salt and we're not using lots of packaged food. So they'll see their blood pressure might start to come down as well, in addition to their cholesterol and their weight and everything else. That seems to all come together. Every organ in our body is related. So once you start changing your lifestyle and eating better and moving more and drinking more water, sleeping more, and all the things we touch on, then every single part of your body starts to improve. You start to see the labs improving. You start to see your sleep improving. You see the numbers on the scale coming down. You might see your hair is shiny or your face clears up. That food is related to every part of our body, and when we're eating the way that I teach you, all these things, whether they were high to begin with or normal, they do improve. And, of course, doctors want all your labs to be optimal now, so the lower the better, of course, with everything.
Well, I remember I interviewed a guy named Dr. Herbert Osibel, and he was famous because his ancestors were the priests in the ancient temple in Jerusalem, and they worked with antimicrobial plants. And he is a really brilliant guy. I did 3 hours with him over like a year, because he talked all about medicine and health, and he has a whole tradition in his family of health and healing. And he was saying how the secret to a long life is to get your heartbeat down. To have it, the fewest heartbeats per minute, the better. Because that really extended your life by a great magnitude.
Your heart is a muscle, and the harder it has to work, you can think of it different ways. You want to exercise so that you're exercising that muscle in a good way, but, the higher your blood pressure is, the harder organs have to work, and it exhausts them, which is when all these other things start to happen. You want to eat as real and as cleanly as possible so that you're just helping everything out in your body.
What are triglycerides, and why are they bad for us, and how do you control them?
Well, triglycerides is the fat circulating in your bloodstream. So 3 things make your triglycerides higher. That's sugar, alcohol, and what's the third thing? Sugar, alcohol.
Well, isn't alcohol kind of a sugar in a way? Well,
yes, it is. I would consider alcohol a carbohydrate, which is then turned into sugar. So when I'm helping people, I tell them, well, let's just think of it as a carbohydrate. It's definitely still included in your life, but again, it's trying to have 1 or 2 glasses of wine instead of 5. Okay, so alcohol is a whole other thing. But it's fat, and not the good kind of fat. Sugar and alcohol are the three things that will raise your triglycerides. And when you're overweight, they're usually higher. So as you lose weight, they tend to, in the right way, they tend to come down. So, of course, we want your triglycerides to be as low as possible to prevent, atherosclerosis, which is when, your arteries start to get clogged up.
Now, isn't that the scourge of the American diet, basically, that we're getting all plaqued up?
Well, I mean...
pizza, hamburgers, hot dogs, isn't that what's causing all the plaque in us, in a sense?
Fried foods. I honestly think it's more of just a poor diet in general, low in fiber, high in sugar. Again, I think sugar is the biggest enemy, to be honest. I don't think it's that we're overeating one food too much, like hamburgers. I think it's just the added sugar in all of our food that's making all of our labs go up.
Now, you probably see all kinds of labs.
Yeah.
Over the years, are we just being more challenged as a society as the quality of the food out in the world just seems to be worsening?
Yeah. I think that's a major problem. We're getting fruit from the other side of the world, and by the time it reaches us, its nutrients have decreased, which is one reason why I tell people it's okay to buy frozen fruits and vegetables. They're actually frozen at their peak of freshness. But yeah, I do think that the quality of food is a problem. We're really, the dollar is what matters to most of these food companies. So whatever they can do cheaper, they're going to do, and that compromises the quality of the, ingredients they use, which is one reason, again, I love all of these small batch brands that I'm finding, and these companies that are really paying attention to ingredients and where they're finding them, and that they're using local farmers and organic farms that don't use pesticides and that, have stricter farming operations. So, knowing where your food's coming from is so important, and most of us have no idea. So, that's why I love farm-to-table restaurants, and there's companies out on Long Island, like Our Harvest, which, you can pick up food from all the local, North Fork farms. You can pick that up any day of the week in so many locations. And you know exactly where it's coming from and when it was picked and, what the farming practices are. And you really can't say that about many foods that we eat, which is why people like to plant their own gardens now. They know exactly where it's coming from. But the majority of us have no clue.
All right, and in the last minute, tell me about thyroids. I know a lot of people on thyroid medicine. You see that very common now, and it may not have been really on the radar decades ago. Yeah,
a lot of people I see have thyroid disorders, which can mess with your metabolism, which, is kind of cool that I have a machine that can actually test your metabolism. So, we've found people that have thyroid disorders from seeing that their metabolism is really low in my office. So, then I'll have them go to an endocrinologist and get checked, and they found out, oh my God, I'm actually hypothyroid, which means their thyroid isn't working, properly, and they need to be put on a certain, medication that will help regulate it. So it is, in the nutrition field, thyroid is linked to metabolism and sometimes weight gain because, things are just not working correctly in your body.
Wow. We're almost out of time. So real fast, if you're out there at 15 Bryant Avenue in Roslyn, knock on the door, say, hey, Laura, I heard you on the radio and you were awesome. But if not, and you can't knock on the door, could you give your email and your other contact information real fast?
Yeah, sure. It's laurawburaknutrition.com or Laura, LAURAW, B as in boy, URAK @gmail.com.
All right, that's it for this week of Taking Care of Business. Thank you, Laura, for spending some time with us, and hopefully we've improved the health of all of our listeners out there.
Thank you.
All right. So,
I hope so.
So we'll be right back next week. Thank you for listening. You can catch us on YouTube, iTunes, and all those great platforms. See you next week.